One of the key things to keep in mind in doing business in Mexico, I think, is that it's very, very important to build personal relationships and maintain those personal relationships. In fact, it is very much the practice for major owners of businesses there to periodically invite some of the key people within their plants or within their factories, if you will, to their home or even their weekend homes for a Saturday or a Sunday outing with the family. It's not at all unusual, for example, in Mexico, for the chief financial officer of a firm to invite his plant manager or the manufacturing manager to spend the weekend with their family out by the pool, relaxing, having dinner with the family, because it builds and maintains that relationship. Because the key is that that manufacturing manager or that plant manager is the consensus leader for all the other workers in the plant.
Mexican business people prefer to deal with known entities and known personalities. This means known by themselves or known by others. So if you're not personally known, the fact that you do have a business and a reputation in the U.S. is going to be important to potential Mexican associates, whether or not they're personally aware of that business or reputation. This is just one of the payoffs you'll receive if you prepare for business in Mexico by first meeting and getting to know as many Mexican business people as possible in the U.S. through joining organizations, meeting with trade delegations, and attending business-oriented social functions. By taking this approach for just a few months in advance, you can arrive in Mexico with a briefcase full of letters of introduction. Along these same lines, it doesn't hurt to give a bit of coaching to your banking, legal, and trade references in the U.S., so that in addition to giving you a technically good reference when asked, they can give you a culturally effective one as well. Be sure that your references realize that a strong personal recommendation from a senior person in their organization by telephone, followed by a paper or an electronic response, is far more effective than simply documenting the fact that you're in good financial standing or have a wonderful reputation. It doesn't matter that your references don't know the Mexican people who are inquiring. The fact that they will take the trouble to respond personally and to affirm that they know and respect you personally, that's what matters. Contrary to what you may have heard, Mexican business people and organizations are full of competent, qualified decision makers. What you as an American have to master is the art of getting things done in Mexico. A very effective, culturally linked strategy is to approach any meeting covering serious issues by initiating informal, face-to-face discussions with key people before the meeting, and then listening carefully and with obvious interest to their opinions and advice. Where Americans tend to use meetings as a place to get work done, to work things out democratically and in public, Mexicans tend to see meetings as a place where persons with authority ratify what has already been decided in informal private discussions, and not necessarily by just the people in the meeting. For example, Americans in meetings treat new ideas as fair game. We routinely will propose a new idea and make a decision on it in the course of a single meeting. In Mexico, a new idea is not seen as fair game, but as something unknown. Nobody knows what anybody else thinks about it. Nobody knows if they personally want to have anything to do with the idea, even if it may seem innocent or even attractive. This is because there's been no chance to go through the informal discussion and review process which lies at the core of most decision-making in Mexico.
I feel that unless you are very fluent in Spanish, that you should not attempt to use it in business negotiations. Hire a professional interpreter who knows what the nuances of the languages are, what the colloquial expressions are in the area where you are doing business, so that you don't get in trouble. Hire an interpreter and use that interpreter, even if you are fairly fluent in Spanish. One of the examples we had in the language problem is that we were told constantly by the people at the IMSS that the presentation was extremely important. It is one of the most important things that we do. We must be careful about the presentation. It must meet exact standards. The presentation is important. Now that's translated into English. It was over a month before we found out that presentation means packaging. And in fact, what they were talking about is the labeling on the packaging.
The path to effective persuasion in Mexico lies not in public argument, but through private discussion with a lot of listening. Americans will find it very helpful to keep in mind that in Mexico, far more than in the U.S., how your counterparts or associates feel about you, your proposal, your personal style, your reputation, your prestige, all of these things may matter just as much as your deal, your terms, your competence, and even your ability to deliver. Now, one of the implications of this difference is that Americans who can pay attention to and cultivate an understanding of how their Mexican counterparts feel about things will be much more successful than an American who relies exclusively on a discussion of the technical pros and cons of the subject.
Mexicans are still interested in a very primary way in globalizing their own businesses and making contacts in particular with North American businesses. And they're very open to these contacts now. Moreover, they're most appreciative of people that would make these contacts now and continue to build their relationships with them. So you may in fact be able to gain some competitive advantage by continuing your business and your marketing and your relationship building during this period. I know that several American software companies, for instance, are offering deals to Mexicans which include greatly extended terms of payment, 120, 180 days, deep discounts, and a variety of other techniques to not only ensure that they continue with the current market share they have, but to let their American or their Mexican business partners know that they wish to continue this relationship, they're there in the market to stay, and that when things get better, they'll share in the success. So taking a cue from these very sophisticated companies such as Microsoft, Lotus, and others, I think we small business people also need to think about how we're going to continue our relationships in Mexico, because in my opinion things will get better and we want to be there when they do.